Okay, well, welcome everybody to another virtual First Friday. Who knew we'd be doing this over a year later? We've had a variety of different things every month. Every one of them has been fabulous. We've had, authors and poets and musicians and wonderful artists. So we are excited to see the artwork this rotation and on this First Friday by some amazing. Oops, let me admit one more person. Some amazing artists. I will have Rick Stockwell, who's the coordinator of the micro galleries, take it from there. Hi, Rick.
Hi. So we have been doing virtual openings since COVID, and we are assuming that this will be the last one we do and we can get back to our live openings. We love doing our First Fridays every 3 months with different art show openings, and we feed you and provide free wine, and it's a nice social event. So this has been a attempted substitute for that, but nothing like free wine and good food and great art. So and great conversation and connecting with all the people that come to those shows. So hopefully in September, which is our next opening, we'll be able to have a live opening and have everybody there. And so we have 3 artists, and we have videotaped them talking a little bit about themselves and then about their artwork. They look at each piece and describe it a little bit. And all 3 artists won't take any more than a half an hour. But I'm going to go to screen share, and I will share the first artist. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just start it. And
my name is McElroy, and I've been painting since I was in high school. Took some time off to work in the full-time professional world, which I still do, but I got back into painting about 7 or 8 years ago, and I paint what I see. So what I like to do is work with oils and acrylics, and I'm very much impressed by light and shadow. So a lot of my work has been influenced by Edward Hopper. Also Horace Pippin, which you might not be able to tell, but I love Horace Pippin and his sincerity in his work. And so it's kind of a mixture of taking something from an everyday scene like he would, and then kind of being influenced by Edward Hopper by using light and shadow. So just taking ordinary scenes and making them art. That's what I do. This is a piece that, what's the name of it? I'm going to try to, we can edit this part out, obviously, yeah. Right. This piece is from a development in Plymouth, New Hampshire. We were driving by one day and looked just like this. I had to paint it. That's the story behind that. I was doing a series of restaurants. This is a Papagino's, in case that's not obvious. Again, I was waiting for a pizza to pick up, and no one was in the restaurant. Light and shadow kind of speaks for itself. It had to be painted. Another kind of mini series that I had started was on gas stations and convenience stores. Both of these happen to be in Massachusetts. Again, walking by. What I do is take photos and then paint later, because it's usually hard to set up a canvas and easel on the street here. Just some small paintings, again, of New Hampshire. These are up north a little bit, up in Campton and Sugar Hill. The top one was just I like the dramatic use of light and shadow that was actually just there. Just transferred it to canvas. These little cows, you've seen I do a lot of running, and it's always nice to stop and take a picture when you run, when you see cows. This is a piece I saw on my ride home working late one night. I had to pull over, take a picture. This is up in Ashland, New Hampshire. Bob Sherfine just caught a really nice moment. This woman closing up, and felt I had to capture that. So I did. Again, I do a lot of running, usually early in the morning, because I do work. So this was a 4 a.m. run in the fall, but it was really nice to get a shot right before a car was approaching and lit up the leaves really nicely. These two, again, just running around, taking pictures and finding things to paint later. The lower piece is actually of Newfound Lake. I took this during the Newfound Lake Marathon. Had to stop and take a picture while I was running it. And there you go. This piece here is actually of the fishing derby on Lake Winnipesaukee. It's just really great. So that's one of my favorite events during the year, just to see all the different bob houses right on the lake. It's really nice. And this is Route 3, Plymouth. Really cool morning, truck in front of me. I was out to get a cup of coffee, and my husband took this picture so I could paint it. And this is a nice dock scene over on Winnipesaukee. Walking by, looked good. Again, from an early morning run. It's about 5 in the morning. I always love that when there's just a house with one light on. I always wonder what's going on in there, drinking their coffee or what, but it's kind of a special moment for me and probably for them to have some quiet in the morning. So just try to capture that. This was actually based on an unsolved mystery of someone waiting for a phone call from someone who never made the call. I just tried to kind of capture that waiting, just waiting for a call that never came. So again, using light and shadow to try to capture the mood there. This is 93 North. Again, early morning, headed up to Polly's Pancakes just to get some first seating there. And it's kind of nice to get up there early. And you also get a nice sunrise sometimes too. So really cool. The clouds were just like that, just kind of looming over the road. It was really cool. This is one of the smaller motels up on Route 3 in Holderness. It was like, I don't know what time it was, but just, you know, the sun was just barely like in the sky, and it was just a nice moment to capture there. I recognize this as Five Finger Point. Up in Holderness, Rattlesnake Mountain. This was a sunset, I believe. And this was from the nighttime walk in Ashland, New Hampshire. They have a nice little gazebo, nice park, and a really nice little lamp there that lights up the trees nicely. So made that a painting. Franconia gas, and speaks for itself. Nice lighting at night, pretty cool. This is, I grew up in Massachusetts near Framingham, Mass, and there is a really, back when shopping could be magical, there was a place called Shoppers World, and it had the only Jordan Marsh with a dome store. It was always kind of a special place, and just really cool to to try to capture. I'm big on nostalgia, and this is always one of the more commented on paintings, but it's always nice to share that. People have a lot of great memories of Jordan Marsh, and it's nice to hear that feedback. And this is the white oak motel that's no longer. So I took a picture of this a couple of years ago, right before it closed. Didn't know it was going to close, but I'm glad I got to document it and get that in. And last, this is on the docks over in Meredith on Winkelsaki. I got coffee one morning and was taking a walk and saw this really nice scene. And
So this is a show that really has to be seen. The lighting at the New London Inn, unfortunately, is not very good, and a lot of her artwork is pretty dark. But she really does have a Hopper-like style. I don't know the other artists, but it's at the New London Inn, and it's really worthwhile to get to go there. I apologize for the sound in the back. We couldn't exactly tell the people at the inn who were taking reservations for dinner to keep it quiet. So it is what it is. She unfortunately has a Mother's Day commitment tonight. She's hoping to join us at some point for the question and answers. So if you have some questions for her, hopefully she'll be able to join us for that. So I'm going to go now to screen share for our next artist. And
Hi, I'm Gwen NAgel. I live in Grantham and in Maine in the summer. And I grew up in Minnesota in the flatlands, so I wasn't particularly interested in the landscape, but I became so. I went to a small school and I didn't have art classes, but I had a 5th grade art teacher who really encouraged me. I went off to college thinking I would be an art major, but I ended up being an English professor. But my summers in Maine, once we were living in Boston, I started taking watercolor workshops, and I worked on watercolor for a few years. I met a woman who is a pastel painter. She taught me pastels. I got hooked on those. And then my husband and I moved to Georgia, where there was a very large plein air movement. A lot of people were painting on location. And I joined it, and I was one of the founding members of a group called the Plein Air Painters of the Southeast. And I painted all over the Southeast with a lot of painters. And when we moved back to New England, I live in Maine in the summer, but I go south to New Hampshire for the winter. I still continue to paint outside. And what I've got up at the Blue Loom today is a collection of both pastels and oils. Many times I'll work out on location in one medium, bring it back to my studio and do a larger piece in another medium. This is a pastel, not a landscape, it's a painting of spring onions. Most of the paintings that I have in here are landscapes, but that's another one. This is a painting of a rooster. Sorry for the glare, but that's the issue with pastels sometimes. I wish I remember the name of that particular rooster, but I don't. I live in Eastman, and this is a recent painting I did. Whoops, I'm trying to find the, here, of Eastman Lake in the spring. I love all seasons, but the spring colors are so lovely. I like to capture them. It's Eastman Lake. This is another lake in Maine. It's Highland Lake, although it could be any number of a lake. I'm going to try to catch that without glare. Sorry about that. Misty Islands and Highland Lake. This is also a pastel. This I don't have such problems with the glare. This is an oil a recent oil I did of a winter marsh. It's somewhere in where I live in New Hampshire. I can't quite remember where. This is a series of small paintings I've done. They're all pastel. This is of the Fells, the old garden of the Fells. This is over in Maine. It's a landmark tree that I have painted several times. Let's find that. This is in Newry, Maine. Lots of fall scenes and another fall scene. I try to get out as much as I can in all seasons. This little one is just a little 6x8. I was out last fall doing a plein air session, and I liked the color of the trees and so on, and I didn't have a lot of time, so I could only do a small one. What I do often with a plein air piece is I take it back to my studio and work larger. And this is a pastel that I did from the small oil painting that I did. I do that often. I'm never bored with my mediums, because if I'm working on one thing, I often try to do another painting of it in another medium. So I'll go back and forth between oil and pastel. This is another pastel. This is in actually a place called Ocean Point in Booth Bay. I painted here one day with several artists. There were about 75 of us. It was a plein air Painters of America paint out day. And I did a little oil, and from that study and many photographs, I did this pastel. The island is very hard to do, to capture surf, because it's constantly moving, so I do use photographs as well. The island in the distance is Monhegan, one of my favorite places. Coming into the Blue Loon, I hung one of my oils, a cow. I do like to do animals. I haven't done as many as I'd like, but this is a Vermont cow, big oil. I have several other pastels here. As I say, I like to paint on the islands in Maine, and I painted many hours one morning. I went over in an early boat. When the mist was there, I came back. That was a little oil I did. I came back, and in my studio, I did these two pastels, which shows Monhegan. It was fall, and so the goldenrod was in bloom, and I love the way the colors in the mist was rising there. Again, issue with that. I love snow scenes. I grew up a Minnesotan, and we lived in the flat, but I love painting snow scenes. I'm not as brave as some of my compatriots who will paint outside in the snow. This is Fryeburg, Maine, the fields over there. And this is Eastman. I'm a cross-country skier, and this is one of the trails, and I happen to have my little camera along one day and just caught some trails. These are both pastels. This is one of those occasions. This is a Vermont farm. I was just driving down the road. I always have my camera with me. I didn't have the time. I had an appointment. I didn't have the time to stop, but I loved it that this was early in the spring. A gentleman was out working in his farm, getting the garden ready. This is also a pastel. I've painted many times on the Kankomagus, and this was a small scene I did one fall, the Kankomagus Highway that stretches across New Hampshire. This is a large pastel that I did in my studio of the Kank. There's a wonderful little pullout called Lily Pond, and every time I go by there, I stop and photograph, and it fascinates me in all seasons. This should be familiar with the locals. It's the gazebo in New London. I caught it. I didn't paint there because it was the morning sun was just rising and the mist was rising. And so I did a little pastel from that. a little animal scene, a fawn, pastels. And this is Mount Desert Island and oil that I did. Again, fall scenes. This last group are 4 oils that I've done. I've worked a lot in pastel, and I'm trying to get going more in oils. And I like the horizontal shape of the landscapes. And I'll point these out all seasons. This is over on Cloudland Road in Woodstock, a favorite road of a lot of photographers. It's beautiful. This is in Enfield, a spring scene, an Enfield farm close to where I live. This is somewhere in Vermont. I'm not sure where, but it was a rainy day, and it certainly has the mood. I love trying to capture the various moods. Finally, this is Yankee Highland Farm. It's off exit 14 off of 89, and I live very close to this. I go by this many times a week. I caught this sort of at mud season, but the snow was still there. And those barns are lovely. And I've been here for 8 years now, and I see them crumbling. And it's very sad. And I think one of the things that I like to do in my painting is to capture something that's vulnerable. And I know that in a few years, those barns won't be there. But I feel the same way. So I'm doing a kind of preservation of a scene that I think cannot last forever. But that happens to me when I'm painting anywhere on the landscape. I'll go by and see something that's lovely, and a couple years later, the trees have grown up, or somebody has taken down trees and you can't see the scene anymore, or there's a big new building that blocks it. So whether I'm trying to capture the mood and the mist that's rising in Monhegan, or a part of the New England landscape that's vulnerable, that's one of the preserving functions I see that I'm doing. I enjoy being out just painting for the sheer joy of it, but preservation is also that I have in mind. Thank you.
So I've been trying to get Gwen to do a show for us for a while, and I'm thrilled to finally get her. She is a very accomplished artist, and I love her work. She's already sold one piece, and the show hasn't even opened yet. The Blue Loon, if you get a chance, if you haven't been there, it's a wonderful bakery. It's partially open now. I don't know how open it is, but you can go in, and if you ask them to go into the other rooms to see all of the art, they will let you. I'm going to go to Gwen for question and answers right now, because, well, her images are still fresh in your mind. And then after that, we'll go to Anna Marie Ash, our third artist. And hopefully by then, Michelle McElroy will have joined us for question and answers for the first video that we showed. Gwen and I share a love of Maine. We have places in Maine within about 15 miles of each other, and yet we've never gotten together out there. We're promising we're going to do it this year. But I'm thrilled to have Gwen showing with us this year, and let's open it up to questions and answers. And if you have a question, just unmute, and Gwen will need to unmute, and she'll take your questions. Why don't you raise your hand too if you have a question, so we can.
I guess I answered all questions.
I'd like to ask you, Gwen, you do both pastel and oil. I find them very different. I know other artists find them very similar. How do you transition from one to another? With oils, you're mixing. With pastels, you don't mix. So I find that's kind of a very different medium.
Yes, I know what you mean. I think artists who say that watercolors, oils and pastel are similar, are perhaps speaking about the way you often start a painting. In oils and in pastels, I usually establish my darks and then go light. Um, in the watercolor, you really need to save those whites, or once you lose them, they're gone. Watercolor is the most unforgiving of the mediums. But you're quite right. I can go out and paint in watercolor or oil. And last summer I worked in gouache, which is also a water medium, but it's an opaque medium. And I can bring 3, 6 little tubes of paint and mix any color I need. With pastel, the problem with pastel is that you don't mix them. You have to have the right color, the right hue, the right value. And so I go out with a very large, sometimes a table. And when I first started, it was ridiculous. I had a huge table of pastels, and that can be problematic. It's hard to end quickly. I once inadvertently painted in the snow. I was up at Rangeley, Maine, and it started to snow, and pastels will melt if they get water and oil, snow on them. So you can't hurry putting them away either, because those little sticks are tiny, but they're very expensive. And many times I'll be sitting on the rocks and I'll drop my favorite $5 stick in the rocks and they're gone. And so you have to be, they're sort of a pain in a way, but I love the medium. But I think I think artists who talk about the similarities of oil and pastel maybe are talking about how they approach it. And
which one do you prefer?
I don't really have a preference. I've probably done more pastel and I'm working more. Just for practical reasons, pastels have to be framed under glass. And for many shows, when I was first painting with the plein air painters, I would be the only pastel painter. And we'd paint for a week, and then one day we'd have to frame them all up. And it would take an oil painter 5 minutes to frame, and it would take me half an hour, because of mats and all of that. So sometimes just for practical reasons, I prefer working in oil.
Well, both of them are absolutely fabulous. I'm looking forward to seeing them in person soon.
Thank you, Jean.
Elizabeth has a question.
I can't hear you.
Oh, she's unmuting.
Muted?
Yeah.
Okay. Gwen, I loved your plan to take the pictures you took of something that may disappear in a few years.
Yes.
I think that is wonderful. When I was living in Connecticut, there was a house across the street from me, 100 years old, and it had been sold, and it was going to be turned, the property was going to be turned into 2 big homes. And I had a friend at my house painting my yard that had the apple blossoms blooming. And when she realized that house, someone must have arrived there, a working truck or something was going to be gone soon, she changed from my yard to painting that house. And I have that house. I bought one of her pictures, and it just is wonderful to see the history there. It had been just there for so long, and the person who lived there was so interesting, and it's just wonderful to do that. So I thank you for doing that.
Well, it's you do see, especially with housing booms and so on, and just nature, the trees grow up and you don't have the view. I've often thought that artists should get a little sticker on their hands saying, you can come in, we don't do any damage, we just either take a picture or sit quietly. But so often you lose just the beautiful views because they've been purchased and people put up big fences around them. And so I'm happy if I've caught something before it's no longer available to the rest of us.
Well, that was beautiful. I love that one you have.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else? I have a question. I'm curious about, because you seem to be pretty prolific to me, and do you go out spontaneously when the weather's just right or the lighting's just right, or do you have specific places that you want to go out and paint? I know you photograph some things when you're going by, but how do you decide when to paint and under what circumstances?
It usually occurs in the summer when my friends say, let's go out. And I have one friend, Madeline, this past summer got us out about 2-3 times a week. And we look at the weather. If it's too windy or if it's raining, that's a no-go. And we try to hit light that is good, early morning light. Evening, just before evening, sometimes it's beautiful color light, as you know, as a photographer. But I have a group of there are 4 of us who live in Maine in the summer, and we have for years rented a house on the coast, and we go there. We didn't last summer; that was a big loss. But that week we just paint full bore for the whole 7 days, and it's wonderful. But otherwise it's just what the day looks like, and whether one of my buddies is bugging me and said, we got to get out, let's go paint that scene, or I saw something and the apple blossoms are in bloom, we got to get there. So it varies on that ground, yeah.
All right, well, thank you. And if you're in New London, the Blue Loon is closed Monday and Tuesdays, I think. But if you're in New London, definitely stop in there and take a look at her work before it's all sold. So I see that Michelle McElroy is here. She's the artist that we showed the first video of her work with the great hopper effect and the lighting effect in the New London Inn. So also, if you're in New London, stop by at the inn and take a look at her work. So let's go to her. And if you have any questions, did we lose her? I see, oh, there you are, yeah. If you have any questions for Michelle, raise your hand. Remember, she did the hopper style and the lighting and the gas stations and the some landscapes. And Sharon.
Yeah, so I'm, oh, go ahead.
Michelle, I'm a former college theater professor, and I used to use Hopper, his paintings in my acting classes all the time, because they gave the feeling of a scene just about to happen or something. And I just so appreciated that in your work. The girls closing the store in Ashland at Bob Shorefine. I grew up in Ashland, so
Oh, nice.
yeah, the Ashland and Holderness images were really beautiful. But I really got the feeling of story in a lot of your images. Like for me as a writer as well, I would want to give that image to my students and as a writing prompt. Here's the image. Start the story from there. I'm an interdisciplinary artist as well, so my mind was just going like crazy looking at your images. So I just wanted to say thank you for taking me down a whole bunch of lanes.
Oh, well, thank you for the nice words. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the goal with those pieces. There's, a silent narrative to it, and that's what makes me want to paint it. It's just like there's always like a human element or a human connection to something, even if there's no people in it. Most of my work doesn't have people in it, but it's something that usually someone can connect with, because it's nice to have that.
Like the image of the 2 doors in the hotel room, like it's caught, for me it was caught like somebody's just about to come out.
Yeah.
It was just gorgeous.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm glad you like it.
Jean, you need to unmute.
I didn't want to hog the video here, but there were 2 things I wanted to ask you actually. Wait a minute, let me add myself here. One is, what was your training? Number 1, but I did want to comment on I love your work as well, by the way. Actually, I should say like 3 things. I don't know the artist besides Edward Hopper that you were speaking of, but let me first say that one of your paintings of the telephone, which I love the story behind it, and there was a cereal box, Life, in the back.
Yes.
And I thought, was that really there, Life, or did you add that in as a juxtaposition between the waiting for the phone call?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little tacky to put it there, but I felt that it worked, and I don't care about being tacky. You know, I've you know, had a lot of tough critiques in my work sometimes, and you know, sometimes you just kind of gotta go with what you think looks right. But I just like that box. So what I did was I actually just printed the box cover and put it on an actual box of some other cereal and put it as put it where I was taking my my photo from, so I could actually use it. So I love making props too, and so kind of like Sharon, to your, you know, what you're saying about theater and making scenes. It's I love using multimedia in as far as setting up a scene if it's not already there. You know, if I want something, I'll make it and put it there. So I just thought it looked right. It worked with the colors of the kitchen, and makes a small statement, just adds a little mystery because there's the phone there too. But thank you. Yeah, and so my training was pretty much, I went to school at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, and that's where I got my really tough critiques. I don't know, you know, sometimes I would wonder, you know, why I was accepted there if they were going to rip it apart. But that's, I learned that's just part of the art world. You know, it can be tough or it can be really nice, and I learned a lot. And then I took a break for a while, and then just did a lot of, I actually learned, the most I learned was just taking adult education classes in painting. I had a really great teacher in Maynard, Mass, and he taught me a lot, really great stuff. So that, and then your other question was about Horace Pippin, I think, who kind of got me started in painting altogether. I was in, I think I was like 14 years old, and I saw a magazine cover with one of his works on it called Domino Players. And I don't know, it just struck a chord. And, you know, I have to say, like, it didn't really seem to make sense to me why I would have a connection if you look at his work. It's a lot, it's pretty hardcore stuff for what he was saying in a very folk art way. So, you know, he was a son of slaves and grew up on a plantation, and fought in World War I eventually. And I don't know why I connected with it, but I did. And so there was like that.
Sounds like someone I want to look into.
Yeah, just really pleasant. Some of it's more lighthearted stuff, and some of it's making a statement, and just, it's all from the heart. It's really, I encourage people to check him out.
I have one more question for you before I give the podium up. You use a lot of black.
Yeah.
What do you mix as an artist? That's always a challenge. So what are your favorite combos to make the different blacks?
Yeah, I'm trying to, as I'm seeing them on walls, they are tough to photograph too, because black just doesn't, it's always shining or something. But I usually use a mixture. I start off with Payne's Gray, and then I'll either add, you know, like a ultramarine, or if I want it like a little earthier, like an Indian red to it, and just kind of keep mixing it up until you get what you like. And it's interesting how, you know, when you add light to it, that can change. I've spent wasted whole afternoons just mixing blacks, and it's not getting right.
That's,
you know,
why I asked the question. I have too.
Yeah, it's tough. There's no easy, so eventually you get there, but it's that's part of the process. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I love your work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and definitely check her work out. You have to see it in person because of the stark simplicity, and the lighting is very contrasty, and the lighting in the inn, as I said, is terrible. So it's very hard to photograph them and get the full effect. I love the Jordan Marsh. Those of you who grew up in the Boston area and you know about Jordan Marsh, I love the blue light in Jordan Marsh. They're very nostalgic, a lot of them, and they really induce a real feeling of going to the gas station late at night because you forgot something, or your wife's pregnant and she said she needed something that you can only get at midnight at the gas station. And so definitely get to see the show. The inn is open all the time. So, and they're under new ownership, and they've changed their menus, and they're actually going to be, we're going to be hanging artwork from the Center for the Arts throughout the whole inn, and we're going to have a shop there and so on. So check that out when you get there too. All right. Our last but not least artist is Anna Marie Ash, and she is with us tonight. So let me go to the video of her work.
Hi, my name is Anna Maria Ash. I live in North Sutton. My family has had roots in North Sutton for 4 generations. My previous work career had nothing to do with art, but I have been interested in art for my whole life. Last year, during the confinement of COVID, I found myself with little to do. So like many of you, but I decided that I would start painting again. So art has become a very important part of my life now. For the past year, I've been doing landscapes, and it seems like now I can't stop. This is a portrait of my dear friend Arturo. He inspired me to walk all of Galicia on the Camino de Santiago. Since then, I have become addicted to 100+ mile walks in Europe, and these paintings have been inspired by those walks. This was on the Dingle Trail. I paint mostly what I see, but every now and then I make changes. So for example, the Irishman does not exist as you see it. They are 2 different locations on the Dingle Trail, and they exist only in this painting. That's a vacation sunset and Loon Island on Kezar Lake. This is a picture of my Cocker Spaniel who used to go sailing with me on my little sunfish. And one day he got left behind, so that's what that's about. I said I live in North Sutton. I live on Kezar Lake, and this is a picture of the Kezar Lake Inlet. In warmer months, I love to get up early in the morning and go for kayak rides. And these paintings were inspired by those rides. That is the Kezar Lake Inlet. No, outlet, excuse me. Morning reflections. Vlad Shurtikin allowed me to use his photograph to be inspired, and this is what resulted from that. It's called Go Get It. Living on Kezar Lake, I am close to Musterfield Farm. So these are pictures of Musterfield Farm. This one and this one were inspired by photographs from Sue Esposito. She gave me permission to use parts of her photograph. These are also different locations at Musterfield Farm. This is Brandon Bay in Ireland, one of my walks. Here are the Cliffs of Moher, also in Ireland. More of Musterfield Farm. And this is, oh, there's a lot of reflection. This is Loon Island on Kezar Lake. I did this on a morning where the light was just that dreary light just before a storm.
So Anna Maria is here with us, and her exhibit is at the Bar Harbor Bank. They're open every day till I think 4:30 or so, but they're closed on weekends. So definitely, if you're in New London, take a look. So questions for Anna Marie?
Anna Marie, are these all oil paintings?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
That's pretty much what I work in is oils.
And do you work plein air or from photographs or a combination of the two?
Mostly from photographs, but when the weather is nice, I'd love to try some plein air. So I'm looking forward to that.
And how long have you been painting? I
I've
think,
dabbled on and off for years, but really seriously only since last year. I started doing landscapes. I never did landscapes before. I tried doing portraits and still life, but this is my first go at landscapes.
wow, you wouldn't know it from the quality of your work.
I want to applaud you for your Irish scenes. I've been to Ireland. I have painted a few paintings, but from photographs, and Ireland is so green. I mean, it part of the problem sometimes is with all the greens that you have in the summer in New England, but I'm wondering if you found that too. It found difficulty in painting all those greens. I think there's a Johnny Cash song called 40 Shades of Green, and I just wondered how you found painting Ireland.
Well, that's, you're right. There's no question why they call it the Emerald Isle. I have experimented a lot this year making different greens. So I'm learning at cooling them and warming them and making greens with many different other colors. You know, like black and yellow can make green. And so, yeah, that's been part of my learning process this year.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, your work is beautiful, and make sure you get a chance to see all three of these shows. They're all right within a couple hundred yards of each other, so you can see all three in a morning. So I want to thank our artists for putting up a show at a time when we can't have our regular gallery opening receptions, and for being patient with me and asking to take a video of them explaining about their work and who they are as an artist. That's never an easy thing. And then I hand them my phone on a handheld gimbal, which is like a gyroscope and so it steadies the phone as you're taking the images. So thank you all for doing such a great job of talking about your work. I'll hand it over to Jean.
Well, I want to just thank everybody for coming. Let me see, see if I am, there I am, okay. Thank you. The artwork is fabulous. I can't wait to go see it in person. Very nice to have such a beautiful representation this time around. As I said, previous rotations have been lovely, but because of COVID, we haven't had quite maybe the variety or the changeover that we have had in the past. So this is really lovely. I can't wait to see them in person. So thank you all of you for coming to another virtual First Friday. This may be the last one. I'm not quite sure. We never quite know, but keep checking the website for updated information. I know in June, we will have the folks from New London Barn live at the New London Inn. So if you can put that on your calendar, you might enjoy that to see what they're up to this summer. And have a great summer, everyone. It's really lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining us.